Now straight away, one of the things that we can see, as we mentioned in the previous video, is that we can see that the system is reading the local resolve.conf. Now that's okay, so we can then use this as a DNS server because we've got then our forwarders to be able to go to be able to resolve the information. However, if we want to use this from the local host to be able to resolve names, then we won't be using the local server. Also, we are limited to 3 server names within a standard resolve.conf, but we're not limited in that way with our DNS mask configuration. So we're going to create a new configuration file for our resolve.conf. So if we go through and vi, and we're in the etc directory, so we're just going to call it resolve. It doesn't really matter what it's called, but we'll call it DNS mask. And then we'll go through and insert, and we have our standard name server record. So I'm going to put the 8.8.8.8, so Google, and then the other Google server we all know about, 8.8.4.4. Now say I could then put more servers in if I wanted to give me greater fault tolerance, but this should be good enough. But if I go through then and save this, we now need to tell DNS mask about this, so we can go back into the configuration. So let's just clear the screen out and then look at our DNS mask, and we'll go through and put conf. Just go to the bottom of the file, so capital G and then O to insert a new line. I'm going to put then the line resolve dash file, and this is then going to equal my /etc/resolve and then .dns mask. Let's give this a whirl, and then when we go through and run our system ctl and restart DNS mask, when we go back and look at our status, we can see now that we're reading in the etc resolve.dns mask, and we're using then the name servers that we have specified. Another problem that we can see though through this configuration is that we're reading 2 addresses out of our localhost file. Generally, we don't want to read our localhost file if we're serving this up as a DNS server. So we're going to add in then another configuration that we'll be able to see straight away within this configuration output. So I can use !v to search back in my history for the last command that started with V. And again, capital G to go to the end of the file, O to insert a new line. And I'm going to specify then no hosts, so we don't read that in. Go back and rerun the system ctl, so we're seeing then the status that we had before. But let's go through now and use Control R for our restart. Then go back and look at our status. And now we can see that we're not getting that information about reading in from our localhost file. So we're starting to get there, but we do need to add some extra configuration in. One thing we probably want to be able to do is listen on other addresses other than just our local host. So again, when we look at netstat minus listening TCP and put the number in, we can see then that we are listening on port 53, but only to the local host. So we're going to add some additional configuration in now. So again, when we go back and edit the configuration, going to the end of this line now, I can just append to the end of the line. And I'm going to add in the 10.0.2.15 address. We'll double check, but that should be the host address that we're using. I'm going to add in domain needed to make sure that we have dots in the name, and make sure that we don't accept bogus private addresses. We can set the maximum amount of clients that we can have, and we can do that within our DNS-forward-max. And we're going to set this then to 100. We'll set our cache size, so the number of records that we can keep. And a lot of this we could adjust dependent on how much resource that we have, but we'll put it to 500. Now we have the resolve line in, but so we don't poll it all the time, I'm going to add in the option no poll. With that in, we can go out and save our changes, and then we go through and restart our service. We can check the status, and now we can see not too much information because we've now configured more options within the file itself. It's not going to show all of those options, but we are starting to secure our system a little bit more, and we can see that we've got the cache size of 500 rather than the previous setting that was at 150. When we go through and clear this, if we repeat the netstat command, now when we're looking at it, that we're looking at it both on the 127 address and on the 10.2.15 address. Now, of course, we would have to open up our firewall, but now we've got a working small DNS server. For the moment, we'll finish up here, but we'll come back in the next video and just look at testing our results.